悪いな、クリムジョ。
You're listening to the AK Mindset. Please beware of spoilers for shows such as One Piece, Bleach, Naruto, My Hero Academia, Haikyuu, and others. If you're not copied the manga yet, we advise you to listen carefully, and we hope you enjoy the show.
The AK Mindset.
Yo, welcome guys, we're back again for another episode of the AK Mindset. We're excited for this one as always. Today is an interesting topic still. It's interesting topic. I always wanted to talk about it because I've always been a guy that always liked villains, always liked antagonists for some reason. I was a weird kid, can't lie. But today we're talking about antagonists. What makes antagonists good? What makes a good antagonist? Not just villains in general, because people just mistake villains to antagonists sometimes, even though a villain can be antagonist and there's other antagonists are not necessarily villains, but that's what we're talking about today. But before that, with me today, we have our normal co-host. We have Daniel.
Yo, what's going on, people? Daniel here. Episode 9, I believe, of the podcast. Soon to be 10. Consistency out. But yeah, we're talking antagonists. I'm excited to get into this one because I thought it was quite interesting when Ed posed the question in our group chat. So yeah, let's get into it.
And as always, we have Raguel.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm glad to be here as usual. Yeah, lovely. I can't wait for this discussion. Got a lot of things I feel like to get out there, you know. I hope you guys enjoy.
Of course. Before we start the topic, is there anything you guys have been watching that, you know, piqued your interest? Watching, reading, anime, comics, graphic novels, anything? We'll go with Raguel first. Anything you've been watching or reading?
Watching and reading. So, like, even before this recording, I was talking to Daniel about catching up with ReZero. I lied. Eden Zero, and like just being up to date now. No, I don't. You know me. I'm not going back to ReZero, even though I'm seeing. Do you know how many things I've seen this week? Every time I open YouTube, I'll see a YouTube video of why these events in ReZero have been so sick, and I'm like, so you decide to be good as soon as I stop watching you. Like,
see, I'm telling you, come back. You're missing.
No, I'm not coming back. They're trying to tempt me to come back and watch it, but no, I won't be persuaded. I'm going to stick to my guns right there. But yeah, Eden Zero has, especially the last couple chapters, have been really just showcase great writing and storytelling, and I feel like I'm established in this journey. Before I was like, let me just see what all this conversation is about, and is this just a knockoff fairy tale, like, you know, adaptation? There's like there's similarities on that, but then really like jumping into the story, man's invested, and I'm definitely excited. And for things I've been watching, I didn't really watch loads of anime this week, but I did have to jump back on my K-drama. So season 2 of Love Alarm dropped, and that's been wavy, man.
Proud. Well, what about you, Daniel?
So for reading, I recently. I was gonna mention Arashi, but I'm actually gonna talk about this new sports manga that's like literally just started. Like chapter 1 dropped yesterday. It's called Deep Free. It's got a black main character.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna talk about too.
Hey, great minds think alike. Listen, Deep Free. It's got potential. It's got really good potential. I'm very excited for what it's gonna show even, and I think I'll let you talk a bit more about it, Ed. But yeah, Deep Free, I really enjoyed that first chapter and second chapter too. I read 2 chapters. It was very good. And then for what I watched, you know me, Wonder Egg Priority. Wow, we had a recap episode last week, so the streak ended. But this episode, they came back strong with my favorite character, Neru. We saw into her like her mindset with her friend Kotobuki, and like we're getting a bit more information about what's going on with the world, so that was always good. And visuals are OST on point as always, and I'm excited for the next episode. But yeah, very, very strong week for Wonder Egg Priority.
Very good, love to hear it. Yeah, for me, Deep 3, like Daniel said, it was a new manga that came out. I just saw it, I hopped on Twitter. It's like, yo, this is the next wave. You guys should watch it. It's really good. Or read it rather. It's really good. I was like, all right, but let me see it. I've really seen the first episode, read the first chapter, and wow, it's really good. There's not much to spoil, but in case you don't want to know anything about it, I suggest you listen carefully. But it's about, like Daniel said, the black main character, which is amazing already. It drew me in. It's like, what? Black main character, yes, but basically a black main character who has a superstar dad and is trying to like be like him or trying to bridge that gap, but obviously some bad things befall him and is trying to basically overcome it. And yeah, the story looks very interesting just from the
very promising
first chapter. It's impressive, and I love the art. The art just reminds me of Slam Dunk a little bit when he got better with art. It's pretty. That's like it's a pretty piece of artwork, and yeah, you haven't read it. It's only 2 chapters, so it's not a problem about catching up. And if you need something new and you like sports genre, it's for you. And I've been watching, reading Kengan Ashura as well, or Kengan Omega rather. I've been still reading that, and it's been good. Yeah,
that's good. I read chapter 80 this week, but I'm still trying to catch up.
I'm still way behind, but yeah, it's so good. I'm trying to stop myself because I don't want to catch up too quickly, because I don't think I can do weekly for this series. And there's some series you can do weekly, like One Piece I can do weekly, but this I don't know if I can do weekly. It's just I need it now. Everything, the whole story.
How many chapters are out?
101 for Omega.
Yeah, I think so, 100 or something. But yeah, Kengan Omega is good, and I just have to say I'm just happy that this series had a part 2, because it's Kengan Ashura first before Kengan Omega, and I'm just happy this series continued. I was gonna appreciate the artist and also for that. So yeah, but that's me. That's what I've been reading. I haven't watched anything, to be fair. Uni's been kicking my ass, but I'm a manga guy, so that's what I've been reading. And yeah, that's it from me. Right, let's go straight into it. I'm gonna start with not really a list, but just a few antagonists that comes to mind when we talk about like great antagonists. People that come to mind, obviously, like I said before, it doesn't have to be a villain. Like for example, perfect example is volleyball, Haikyuu. There's no villains in there, obviously. There's nobody literally killing anybody in there, but obviously someone who goes against the goals of the protagonist. So you can choose that person as an antagonist, and everything is briefly written. It is, but so any antagonist, doesn't matter the number, 5, 10, you want to go into detail why you like him or not, but just a few antagonists you think, wow, this is a beautifully written antagonist, and maybe it made you start looking at antagonists differently. Because I know there's a couple of people that are like, oh, okay, you don't just have to be a bad guy that loves chaos, but you can have fun with antagonists. But we'll go with Daniel first. Any antagonist that comes to mind?
So when I was thinking about the question, I was trying to go through my favorite antagonists, and it's hard because I've read a lot of different series, but I wrote a few names down, so it makes it easier for me. So the first person I want to talk about is Hao Asakura from Shaman King, and he's got a lot of things in an antagonist that I like. He's got charisma and power to back up what he's talking about. Whenever he's on the page, as soon as he's introduced, you can feel the power and the presence that's behind him as a person in this series. When he's on the page, he commands your respect. You know that this guy, he is a force to be reckoned with. You don't want to mess with him. It's almost a given why he has all these people behind him, because they look at him and they understand immediately what he represents, and just how he ties into the series, the relationships he has with our main characters and with Yo, like the whole history of that what makes him good, and like his power as well. Like it's just fire, but the way he uses it and like how when we get the history and understand what he had to do to get that power, it makes a lot more sense why he's that strong. And then when we get the callback with Mantamune, that one of the characters from Shaman King, that makes Hao a better character as well. But I think the main thing for Hao is his charisma and the power. Whenever Hao's on the page, I said it before, you understand, like, this guy, he's not a scrub. He's not one of those villains where, like, because you get in some medias, like, I think in One Piece you got Spandam. He's an antagonist, but he's a weak one, where, like, it was more he was hiding behind Lucci. But this guy, he's strong and he's an opposing force to our protagonist. And then another person I wanted to mention, just to contrast with like an evil antagonist who doesn't really get redemption, Jack Catless from Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. So he's kind of a guy he's not evil, but he's just like someone who's opposing Yusei. And Jack, he also has charisma and he has these cool one-liners and he's got a cool OST. Back him up. Whenever Jack's dueling on his motorbike, like the OST, when you hear that OST, you can't help but get hyped because it's so powerful. You understand this guy is the duel king. You understand why he's the top duelist in that world. He plays with so much finesse, passion. You see the passion come through his dueling, and it's such a thrill to see. So whenever him and Yusei are dueling, those are some of the best duels in the series just because of Jack. Jack has so much personality and like he contrasts Yusei so strongly. That's another thing that makes a good antagonist. Contrast. Someone who opposes the protagonist with like opposing characteristics. So then when you see the protagonist encounter that person, you see like the different behaviors they might exhibit because of the reactions that antagonists might get out of them because of how different or similar that they might be. But yeah, those are the two that come to mind when I'm talking about antagonists that I like. There's always Frieza, Cell, because Frieza, he's just a prick, but you can't help but not like Frieza. Like Frieza, he's that guy from Dragon Ball. Everyone likes to trash on Dragon Ball, but like Frieza, he is that guy. Like he's just, I'm strong, you're a monkey, I don't have to respect you. I can do what I want because I'm Frieza. My dad said, your planet is mine, so I'm gonna take it, and you guys are all beneath me. Like, he was beating up Krillin, Vegeta, Gohan, he had them on the ropes, went through 3 transformations to tell them I'm using 1% of my power. What? Yo, listen, me, I'm in despair. And then when he blew up Krillin, oh my days. Yeah, and then it led to one of the best moments. But yeah. What about you guys? What are some of your favorite antagonists?
Yeah, I'm gonna go next because it doesn't make me laugh because you should literally make the meme. It was the beginning of the meme. I'm only using 1% of the power. I was looking at him like, what? But I can't lie, yeah, when I was watching Dragon Ball, yeah, and obviously people like make fun of him, like of Dragon Ball, including me. Can't lie, I've been slandering Dragon Ball for the longest time, but I think Frieza was one of the first villains I'm like, I hate you, I don't like you for some reason. It's not just because some people like, some shows like, oh, this is the bad guy, you're like, I understand where it's coming from, it's not necessarily bad, but with Frieza, I was just like, it's like, First of all, you're ugly, you're short, I hate your voice, and you're calling me a monkey, I don't like it. I felt attacked, I can't lie. But Frieza was just, it was on COD. His motivation was just like, you know what, I'm better than you. Do it. It's like, do you have any? No, I'm better than you. You're a monkey, shut up. I was like, okay. So that's why I was like, okay, villains range from place to place. But one of my favorite villains of all time is Makishima from Psycho-Pass. I don't know if you guys
I haven't watched it fully, but I know about it. Me neither.
Mikishima was one of the villains. I'm like, yo, why am I liking the villain so much? I don't understand. You know, because since I was a little kid, like the villain, the bad guy, you hate it, then you love the main character, because I think that's where my love for main characters started, because for some reason I just found myself defending main characters. I'm defending Naruto, Luffy, Ichigo, and even though I don't like Naruto that much as a main character, but I'm still defending him. It's like, you know what? Sakura is trash. Don't talk about Naruto like that. but with him, it was just different. It's like, I kind of understand where it's coming from. Like, what he's saying is making sense to me. You know, there's the memes like when the villains like starts talking, and you're like, I agree with him, because it's mad. Just what Psychopaths was like very different. I mean, I felt like the main antagonist of Psychopaths was just the society, and the guy they made out to be the villain wasn't really a villain, because society was just messed up. And yeah, from him I was just like, yeah, I like him a lot. He's making sense. Sometimes I like him more than the main character. It was just, that was one of the first antagonists. I was like, okay, I think I like Antagonist now. And I said Haikyuu before, but Oikawa, and Oikawa was just, it was just different for me. I mean, I love other characters, as the twins in the later series, but in the later seasons, I mean, but Oikawa was just was the OG. Somebody just, the opposition, so it was like, I love him. I love him so much. And what Furudate does so well, it goes into his personal goals, his dreams, and for like almost sometimes he feels like a protagonist, because you want him to win so bad. Then you remember, it's like, oh wait, if you win, that means Karasuno loses.
You're going home.
And I don't know how Furudate made me feel like that, because I wanted him to win and lose at the same time. It was weird. It's like I want him to go to the finals and beat Ishijima and go to the nationals. That's what I want. And yeah, as an antagonist, it was just really good. And he's skillful. I don't hate him. Yeah. Once you make your readers or watchers start liking a character, despite like if he's going against your main character, one of your favorite characters, I think that's masterful writing. And Oikawa does that beautifully. Then I think we have like the OGs like Aizen and Madara. I think Aizen was just the definition of like the cool bad guy, and the twists and turns were just shocking, and he was just felt undefeatable until he got defeated. But yeah, Aizen was good, Madara was good, before you know what happened with
Zetsu.
That's the definition of a good main villain, a bad main villain. It's like Madara, they don't have Kaguya. It's like night and day. I think that's the definition of what we'll get into that later. But yeah, Madara is good. Then Hisoka, I think Hisoka is one of the starters. Like, yo, I mean, Hisoka's been doing some soft stuff, but I still love him. He's just a great character. The guy's high in power. That's his motivation. He wants power, and he wants to face people with power. That's it. He doesn't care if you're a little kid or old man. He's addicted to power. That's why I defend him a lot, because you know I like to call them internet babies. They see like a trend and just run with it. It's like, oh, Hisoka is a pedophile, is a this, is like, did you guys watch the series? I know it's a joke and everything, but people are taking it real serious. Like, oh, I can't believe you actually like this character, you're supporting him. It's like, how are you gonna cancel? Did you even watch the show? I'm very confused. It's clear that Hisoka's, yeah, but that's a different story for another time. But Hisoka is a really good character. And when I read a little bit into the manga, I loved him even more. That was different, but yeah, that's a few for me. Let me know, because I have a long list. I can go for ages, but yeah, Raguel.
Let's see the list.
Before man even starts, I have to say, you know, I have to be honest with the viewers. I have to be with you guys. You know, I thought this was gonna be a protagonist thing. Don't laugh at me, but
oh, dude. On the fly.
It's not that man can't talk about the subject. But you don't. So this is off the dome. This is just pure, like, unfiltered with gel. So let me begin. So what really makes great antagonists is like moral complexity and how well you kind of support the storyline and to see another perspective. So as a reader or viewer, you're not getting bored by your protagonist and their point of view of the world and stuff like that. It has to be someone who equally challenges and is equally like strong enough as a character to to counter like everything that your protagonist is doing. And I think individuals like Johan Liebert from Monster is in the recent times I read, but he just a quality antagonist, and what he brings to the story with his complex morality and his I feel like he's the typical kind of individual you expect to be, because he has that coldness, that harshness, and the way that the story portrays it, him being very cunning, highly intelligent, and has like a great like talent for manipulation. So I feel like those one of like the typical things you kind of look for, but depending obviously on the story. And in Monster, he just gives he's like, I think he fits the title Monster. He's the monster that makes the story so much more engaging and interesting. Like at no point do you feel like at no point do you feel the protagonist could even get over this problem. You feel like he is so far ahead of everybody who's trying to catch him out. Like, he's intelligent, and his ability to survey what's happening throughout every scenario. It feels like he was like 20 steps ahead of everyone. Even in his little spoiler, his demise, you still felt like it was planned. Like it's just so mad. So like I said, individuals like that definitely, I think you can even say that it's like cliche stereotypes of what you would see protagonists to be. But I think one of my favorite is Isabella from The Promised Neverland, because she's someone you wouldn't go out. You would say obviously she is an antagonist to the story, but it's someone that is very loose, because you don't know if it's a position that she has chosen, or is it a position that she had to take up because of their situation regarding the farms and all of that, you know what I mean? And that complexity, that blurred line between those things really engaged me as the reader and the viewer, because I'm like, I need to know, I need to see why, like, where Isabella really stands. Does she really, like, has she really lost her humanity? Does she really not really care about the future of the human race? Does she really believe in the cattle system that they have at the moment? You know what I mean? And as you go out throughout the story and how that progresses, your mind changes. You need an antagonist that constantly changes the narrative and perspective that is shown. You need someone that just keeps it, fresh, and she does that. She's just amazing, because at the beginning you just think, oh, she's stone cold. She's just trying to trap these kids. Like, there's no way she cares about these individuals. Then later down the line, you find out, wait, nah, she deeply loves these kids, and it's unfortunate the position she had to take up. Like, it's one of those, it's peak, but it is what it is. Mm-hmm. And by the end, when we have, even though the end of Promised Neverland was a bit meh, but you still get to see that she stands up and fights for them. And those two, Johan Liebert from Monster and Isabella from The Promised Neverland, are really like top tier for me antagonists.
Those are two good picks, definitely.
Very good picks. Yeah, I'm still reading Monster right now, and I haven't got totally to Monster, but yeah.
Oh, my friend, did I spoil it?
No, you didn't spoil it.
Did I spoil it?
No. But he's John is a definition of a. He's a what can I even use to explain this guy? He's a nuisance, bro. That guy is not well in the head, and I love him. I just love him. I think I love my antagonist just slightly mad.
Deranged.
I would say, but yes, deranged. He's a menace. He's a menace.
I said we love him.
We love him. Okay, we're gonna go talk about basically what makes a good antagonist. You guys have been touching on it a little bit, but we'll go into it fully. What makes a good antagonist? What things needs to be checked? Like, if you have a checklist for, okay, I'm gonna like this as a main villain, it doesn't have to be a main villain of the story, or main antagonist of the story, but what needs to happen for you to like, okay, this is a good antagonist, and if this doesn't happen, I don't think it makes a good antagonist. I'll go first. I think one thing that needs to happen to make him or her a good antagonist is I feel like you have to have your own goals, because I feel like once an antagonist is too dependent on the protagonist, then it just makes it so weak. I know people beef me every time I say this, but Broly, even I love the movie, but Broly was not a good antagonist for me. I feel his motivations, everything, like, huh?
They tried to expand it with the whole, I guess him making friends with the green girl and the old man, but like at the end of the day, man was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna beat up Goku, because actually it was expanded upon from that, but like that was what it was. They did try to make him more of a character, so it's more interesting, but like at the end of the day, them two were just scrapping.
That's it. I mean, don't get me wrong, Broly was a good movie. Let's not joke around, but look at Cell and compare him to Broly.
True.
Or even Frieza. Frieza is that simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. They said this, you guys belong to me, therefore you belong to me. So I'm gonna beat everyone up and block this place, and you're not gonna do anything about it. Then the protagonist comes on and stops him. It's fine. But Broly was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna fight you. Why? So I saw someone say that literally the reason Broly started fighting Goku is because Goku made him cry when he was a baby. It just made me laugh. But I was looking at it, it's like, it doesn't mean he's a bad character. It's just, well, I think technically he's a bad character. But I was just like, no one, a character can easily be a good character, like, or an anti-hero. He did not need him to make him the antagonist of the show, and it was still gonna be good. And it was just like, when the conviction is like a bit wishy-washy, I'm like, I don't know, because compare that to most of One Piece villains, I think One Piece have good villains. It gets underestimated a lot because people like to make fun of One Piece a lot. But look at Crocodile or the Flamingo. They were doing their thing, then the protagonist comes and interrupts. Like, they have their own goals, they have their own stuff to achieve. Like, the Flamingo has a plan he needs to achieve. Crocodile has a plan he needs to achieve. Then he gets interrupted by Luffy. Then it's like, you know what? A lot of people have come and gone. They didn't stop me. Who do you think you are? Before they find out, oh wait, plot armor, especially with Crocodile. But I'm never gonna get into that. But yeah, so they have their own goals. So that's why I think you make a good antagonist. You need to have your own goals. You need to have your own motivation. That's not reliant on the main character. For example, if it's One Piece, it can't be like, oh, I want to be the king of the pirate too, and Luffy wants to be the king of the pirate, and because he said that, I'm going to beef him, and that's how we'll fight. I mean, that can be a good character, but I feel like the motivation is just not there compared to the Flamingos. Like, yo, I faced things in place since 10 years ago that's going to make me take over this country. It's going to make me lead them. I have stuff on the Gorosei that's going to make me like basically rule the world, and that's how I want to plan. That's how I want to go forward. Meticulously, I've planned it, it's gone into plan, then somebody comes and ruins my plan. That makes a good villain because he has his plans, he planned it up perfectly, things were going well, protagonist comes in, disrupts his plan, then they throw fists and ultimately he loses. But I think for me, you need to have your own, motivations. You can't rely on the main character, you can't rely on anyone to be a good villain. Like Oikawa, I say it again, he wants to go to nationals, he wants to beat Ishijima. Ishijima is not the main character, but that was his goal. That was his goal ultimately. He's not like, oh, Hinata, you brushed me off when we were walking down the hall, and that means I don't like you. And magically we got paired up for him to go against each other in the quarterfinals, and I don't like you now. No, he has his own goal. Ishijima, I want to beat him because look at the past. He's been beating me for the longest time. I can't go to nationals. He's the one I need to pass, so I need to beat him. I don't care what you have to say. You're not even my goal. I need to get past you so I can go to my goal.
Let me interject real quick, because man's hearing that. I kind of agree with what you're saying with the you have to have your own goals, but obviously it depends on like the story, because like when I think about it, like when you look at Erased, my guy, whoever his name was, you can see that his in the end he as an antagonist was so tied up with Satoru, and that wasn't an issue because of how, especially with the time travel and all that, how that story was told, you know what I mean? So it made sense why his motivation and his character and everything was tied to that individual because of the stakes and the situation, and the fact that obviously during the story found him out, and for that reason he felt like that was the only individual that understood him, you know what I mean? So I hear that for other stories, but I feel like
even with that though, it makes sense because I had a plan, I had stuff I was doing, it was going smoothly, and you interrupted it. Now you're my main focus. That makes sense. That makes sense. It makes more sense than, you know what, my dad said I should beat you up, you know, I'm gonna beat you up.
True.
I feel like most villains that we enjoy, even though like ultimately, because you know it's called Naruto. Obviously, Naruto's gonna be the main focus for most villains. Like even look at the Akatsuki. We were gonna target every Jinchuriki that every person has a Jinchuriki in them, and it just happens to be that Naruto has a Jinchuriki in them. So we're gonna go after it because we have a plan. And oh wait, he beat us. Now we're gonna target you and everyone that's around you. Makes sense. So they had a plan, someone like stopped them or interfered. Now that's the focus. Because oh wait, you did me dirty, I'm gonna go after you now. That makes sense, I feel. Because he had your own plans and the plans was interrupted. Now your plans has shifted a little bit from like your own goal to like focus on this guy, but that's because the guy interrupted your plans in the first place. So I think that's acceptable. I'm not gonna complain at that. Because I forgot his name, the main antagonist in Erased was I loved him. Because he was, teacher.
Yeah,
he was good. It's the way, and he was smart.
Yashiro.
So
Yashiro.
Originally, let me use the word originally. Originally, you have to have your own goals and plans. That doesn't involve the main character. You don't necessarily know who the main character is. Your own goals. Then obviously, eventually, your goals get stopped by the main character. Then maybe your goals change to like get revenge or stuff like that. But at first, you need to have.
I feel like there's levels to the antagonist game. You know what I mean? I feel like Broly isn't up there as a strong. Do you know what I mean? Not every antagonist has to be a good one. Especially depending on the series. Like some of them are just you're there for filler. You're there for you're the light work before we get serious. Hey, I'm not saying Broly is that.
I'm saying,
you know what I mean?
I don't think you should have bad antagonists in any series.
Yeah, but you shouldn't, or there is loads. You know, there's individuals in those like tiny little arc between the big arcs where there's some little like pesky antagonists that they just get over like in some weird or unique way, you know what I mean? They're not really strong antagonists. They're there to serve a purpose as to transition. Like, do you know those transition antagonists? Like, there's loads in Naruto.
I think there's a difference. I was just gonna say that I think there's a difference between like the main antagonist and then like I guess the secondary ones that don't have as important a role in the story. I wouldn't say like they're not as good. They can still be good. It's just they're not the main focus in the story. So I wouldn't say they're bad. So I wouldn't want to have bad antagonists in any part of my series, no matter how big or small their role they play. That's just me.
I mean, if you look at it, I mean, One Piece is like I don't know, maybe an E3 example because it's a very massive series. But Crocodile and the Flamingo were not the main antagonists of the series.
They're the main antagonists of the
was there by
arcs.
chance. That's transitional antagonist basically, because his main villains to him is the world government, not even Akainu, the world government and Blackbeard, for obvious reasons. So Crocodile was just, you know what, I met a friend, you're stopping my friend, I'm gonna deal with you and move on with my story. You're not even important to the story. Same thing with the Flamingo. So that's why I think like the excuse of, you know, it doesn't have to be the most important. Yeah, but there's some series you're not important, but yeah, the characters are just so well written that most people like the characters anyway, and you're not even the main villain. Yeah. And look at Zabuza. A lot of people love Zabuza, but he's not. He was what? How many episodes in, or how many chapters in? He wasn't the main. He was nowhere near the main villain, but still people liked him. Compared to Wapo, which everyone hates, but he's still a transitional villain. But it's just like he's not necessarily, let me not say terrible written, but it's just not as good as the other ones.
He's just annoying. But he did his job, so I guess
he did the job. But you know, when you're talking about great villains, you're not going to talk about Wapol.
yeah.
When you're talking about the
He's not
Flamingo
the
and stuff
reason
like
I
that,
remember
you're
the
gonna talk about-
Flashman.
Exactly. So
I
that's it.
think springboarding off the question, what I like to see in an antagonist. I mentioned it before, charisma, or just what your personality is, depending on the series. So, like, if it's a sports series, I want to see, I guess, if you're opposing our team, I want to see a bit of something that makes you interesting, a quirk, something, not like be a bit deadpan, because this is something that people get on Diamond Ace for with Furia, because he's a bit quiet and he's less reserved. But that's more because he's a contrast for Saramura, so I understand why they wrote him like that. But when you get into the series, you kind of see more things, more insights into his personality, which make him more interesting to me, and like why he's the, I guess, antagonist for Saramura. But he's not like a villain, but he's an opposing force because he's the rival for that Ace position. So charisma or personality, just having a quirk, something that makes you stand out, like something that I can identify with, like, okay, that's what you are. And then following on from that, morals or beliefs. And this is where I feel like if you're gonna have a villain where like we're gonna sympathize with them, or like they're just evil, I want their plans to have some sort of like cohesiveness, like make sense to a certain degree. It doesn't have to make sense all the way, but like I can see the idea. Because like in Avatar Korra, people don't like Korra, but because I've seen the complaint with Zahir that he was a hypocrite and he in his beliefs, and something about anarchy, about when he went to tear down the kings and queens of the world. But with him and also with Amon, what I like about them and their beliefs is because of what was behind their beliefs. Like all of what they were trying to do had credence to it. It's just that they went to the very extreme level where they went past what they were even trying to achieve, and it got distorted what they wanted to do. Like Amon, he wanted it so that in this city the non-benders have just as much rights as the benders, and they can be on the level, an equal playing field, because at that point in time they weren't represented in the same light as benders, like we see it throughout the first season. So but we have that contradiction where he's actually a waterbender and he's hiding that this whole time, and people don't like that. But I actually love that, because he's a bender and he understands the damages what benders can do, and what they can inflict on people, especially those who don't have the ability to bend. So he's gone so far in, so he's like, okay, everyone should just be a non-bender, and that way we won't have a problem anymore. But that's just one solution, and it's a very wrong solution. Like there's other ways to answer that problem. And with Zahir, he's like, okay, in the Earth Kingdom, the Earth Queen is corrupt, and the way we should get rid of this, chaos is the natural order of things. We should just get rid of kings and queens and let the people rule themselves, which has credence. We see in different systems that have like no kings and queens, prime ministers, presidents. So we can have democracy, but the way he went to achieve to set the people free, to give them their voice, was wrong, because we saw when he killed the Earth Queen, it just descended into chaos. People were ransacking the palace, stealing, and then he even admits he sees, and that's another thing why I like to hear, is he understood that what he did, how he went about it, was wrong because of the consequences, and what he actually acknowledges, I was wrong to kill the Earth Queen at that point in time because of the repercussions and what it led to in season 4 with Kuvira rising to power. So I think I like it when the villains go to the extreme and they have credence to the ideas. It's just when it gets distorted, and seeing that point where they distort their ideas is very interesting, because there's always, with the villains that have when the author's trying to make you sympathize with them or trying to explain to you how they got to this point, it's always interesting to see the breaking point for each character depending on the story. Like if I'm talking about My Hero, spoilers, if you haven't read up to, I think it's like chapter 240 of season 5, when you see Shigaraki's backstory and you see the events that led him to becoming this guy of Samura Shigaraki, you understand how he became this guy, because he didn't have the people around him to support him, to, I guess, divert him from going on this rough path. His breaking point was reached, and now that's a point he can't go back from. And I think Horikoshi did a really good job of displaying the breaking point for Shigaraki as an antagonist, and it makes sense. And also in Jujutsu Kaisen Geto, if you've read the Star Plasma arc, you really see the tug and war between good and evil, black and white, how his ideals were here and then they've changed and they're becoming more confused, and then he comes to this conclusion where he's like, okay, no, I'm gonna reject what I once believed, because he's reached that breaking point. So I feel like if you want to make a good antagonist, or depending on the type of antagonist you want to make, you need to be sure of what you want them to do, because if they're just going to be evil, that's fine, because like people love Dio, they love Dio, and he's just evil for evil's sake. He doesn't have anything really deep behind him. He's just a prick. Like he burned the dog in, and he was beating up Jonathan and Frieza. People love Frieza, we mentioned it before. But if you want us to sympathize with them, it has to make sense. Like I can't think of a bad antagonist right now, but like I'm pretty sure we can. Maybe if we talk about it later, but like if it doesn't make sense, people aren't gonna care.
We know that if there was a bad antagonist, we definitely dropped the series immediately, because he's sticking with that.
That's what I say. I feel the reason we don't, like, when we say, okay, name a bad antagonist, we don't like quickly come up with one, is because a bad antagonist is not rememberable. It's not. I can't remember him. It's not significant enough for me to spring it up into my memory. And once your story has that, I feel like your story just lacks. I mean, like Daniel said, it's good to, it's amazing to have people who are just all about chaos. I mean, there's Mahito. I love him. It's just, you know what? Screw all of you. I'm gonna kill every single one. Do you know why? Because it's fun. And this is just who I am. I was birthed into the world just for chaos. I like that character. But I feel like for me, personally, what I think a great character is, I need you to have a motivation. And they need motivation, to have some credence, like Daniel said. Like that's why I think Joker, like when people, Joker is just a great villain for me, especially because of this quote he made. Like basically, everyone's one bad day away from being a horrible villain. I think that's it. You can go down a path and believe something. I think that's what you need to do. You have to have a strong belief on something. It can be good, like Geto. He was good, but he had a strong belief. But you had to see him and follow him. Just slightly, the belief just started changing from one part to the other. It wasn't like all of a sudden. If you keep looking at him, if you keep reading the story, you see like, oh, this guy's thinking. What's going on? This world is not the way I thought it was going to be. It's going to change a little bit. I think that's what you need to have for me to like, oh wow, that's an amazing villain. That's an amazing villain. I mean, I love Aizen. Aizen is good. And Aizen is just, I think it was just a victim of his own amazingness in a way. I love that kind of character too, but I prefer the Flamingo. He was just a kid that was used to stuff, and they were like, this is how I was raised. Then all of a sudden his dad just like switched it on him, and he was like, wait, what the hell is going on? Then obviously the way the world treated him for that and everything, and you can't be surprised when I need to be like, when I'm looking at the backstory, it's like, okay, I understand how he got to that point. I think that's another important thing for me. If I don't understand how he got from A to B, it's like, wait, he was a good guy before, and now he's a bad guy. It can be something as simple as they killed my mother. You know what? Screw all of them. But at least that's simple. I understand it. But if it's complicated and it's like contrived and like, wait, how did he get from A to B? I don't understand like the motivation. How did he switch from like, you know what, I'm fine, it's like I have a belief, but it's not that bad, to everyone needs to burn. That's smooth. That transition needs to be smooth. It needs to be understandable. If you're going to make it complicated, make sure it's written well. If you make it simple, make sure you stick to the point and go through. But yeah, that was a great point by Daniel.
Yeah, and that's one last thing to close off. When you were mentioning about the antagonist being having his own goal and being separated from the protagonist. I like that point because sometimes you get quite commonly the antagonist who's quite similar to the protagonist. I'll use Haikyuu as an example, where you see Hoshiomi and Hinata. They're quite similar in build, in the challenges they face in volleyball. But what Furudati did very well is that he establishes Hoshiomi's goals very separate to Hinata and the way he wants to play, what he wants to be as a player, and what he did to achieve that. And I think that's I don't want to go into manga spoilers, but like how those two become great, but in different ways. This shows how versatile he is as a writer, because he showed that even though you're short, it doesn't mean you have to play this way. You can play that way and that way, even while you're short. And it also shows how Hoshiomi and Hinata, they might be similar in their build, but in their mindset they're different, and they excel at different things. And even though Hoshiomi, he sees Hinata as a rival and someone he wants to beat, it's not something where he's like, oh yeah, it's just Hinata. Hinata's just one person on the team of 6. You know, Oika was always talking about the 6 who are stronger wins. So he's thinking about Hinata, but he's just an extra. His goal is always to reach the top, and I like that. Yeah,
that's a good point. Anything to add, Joe?
I think the thing that really stood out to me when I was thinking about this is I was kind of reflecting on the industry, and we know how the anime industry is first and foremost is to create money, create wealth, and market share and growth and stuff like that. And I was thinking that even though I love the question, I fear when these industry individuals get like a kind of synopsis or a formula where they think this is how to create a perfect antagonist. Because, you know what I mean, especially when you're looking at such a subjective and individual thoughts process on what is and what should be and what should make up antagonist that will reinvest you as an individual into the story. And because I was thinking originality and creativity for me is first and foremost like the most important thing, like how the ability for the antagonist to express a different train of thoughts, like you guys said, different goals, and to reach a unique perspective on the events that's happening in their world. I don't want, and I dislike very generic and very even though generic and simple stuff have their place, I dislike it when it's done for the sake of that's what people think is how we should portray an antagonist. Because as everybody says, you need that depth when necessary. You need that storyline when necessary, how well they link to the journey of our protagonist and other people within that world. And we have so many examples of that. So even and obviously you see that in the greats, in the great shonen, you know, the top tier, the story and the journey of the antagonist can be taken by itself and viewed by itself, and you appreciate that journey. You appreciate and sometimes you empathize, sometimes you dislike, sometimes you hate, but it really doesn't matter. What matters is the fact that their journey has enabled you to have those feelings. Like, it has to stir something in me. Like, if I'm reading an antagonist and it's just like, I don't feel anything. I'm like, what am I reading? Like, actually, what am I actually watching or reading? Like, it doesn't, you know what I mean? I need to, every time I saw Gohan, whatever his name is, every time I saw Isabella every time, even when I saw Aizen, when I saw Pain, when I saw those guys, I felt something. You know what I mean? I was like, what? Nah, I hate this guy. No, I love this. Oh, she's wavy. You know what I mean? And that's what I thought the focus should be always on. It should be on how creatively you can portray these individuals that sparks something new. Because by the time, like, how much, like, think about it, Daniel. We've read and watched so many things. We've seen all the basic archetypes of what antagonists could be. Bro, I'll be bored. Like, I would just stop watching anime if you come out with the same kind of characteristics and stuff like that. I'm like, nah. So I feel like that's what really plays most impact on me.
Yeah, it makes sense because I see this is not slander or anything because I love Black Clover, but I think that's what I think. I love Black Clover, but I don't know. Villains in Black Clover is just no, not a single one. They're not bad villains.
They're just not good.
It's just not good. I think that's one of the main things the series lack. Especially, we're going to transition into another thing, but because the main character, the protagonist, I've seen his archetype already.
Basically.
And I blame Naruto for that a lot, because Naruto's almost like a blueprint. Because Dragon Ball was not. This was not Dragon Ball, because Dragon Ball was the main character. Goku wants like, I want to fight good and powerful people, and that's to be the strongest. That's what I want to do. But Naruto started the whole. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't the first, because obviously there's a lot of anime even before Naruto. But I think it was one of the most popular. It's one of the things that set a goal for the main character. Like, I want to be the king of this. I want to be the best of this. Naruto and One Piece, and Naruto was more popular here, so I was like, not blame Naruto, but Naruto set that goal, like, I want to be the strongest in this. So I've seen the archetype already. So, and I've seen the antagonists that was in the way, and they were good. I mean, Pain was one of the greatest. Madara. I've seen characters like that. So, okay, this is this certain type of archetype when it comes to the protagonist. I need an equally good antagonist to match that up. But once you have a good archetype like that, because like we said before, when it's cliche, it doesn't mean it's bad. But we need... It just feels one-sided when it comes to Black Clover, because it's like, okay, he has a goal. Can someone interrupt that goal, please? But no one. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm going to be the king of the pirates, not you. I'm going to be the Hokage, not you. It's just like, or nothing like Pain. If the village is destroyed, obviously you can't be the king of that village. So you can't be Hokage if there's no village to be Hokage over. So that's like a song that disrupts his goal and the protagonist's goals. But there's no one. I feel like
there's no memorable antagonist. Is that what you're trying to say? Yeah,
I'm trying not to like make, because I love Black Clover. People like making fun of Black Clover a lot, but it's just, I feel like most of the time, if us just ignores most of these things and stuff like that, it's gonna be fine.
The only thing I would argue is the thing with the elves. I don't think he could have ignored that.
Oh, true.
And this current arc as well. I don't know if you're up to date, so I'm not gonna spoil you. But
I'm not completely. I'm just 5 episodes behind.
I'll just put it simply. If he ignores this, then there's no kingdom to be wizard king of. So
okay, maybe that's what we need. So we have the archetype that if it doesn't do something, it's gonna happen. But you need to develop the characters, because before I took a break, all these characters, I mean, they were cool, but that's it. Like Dante, everyone, I forgot the names. The girls with the blood. They were good. It was like I need more. That's why I like the elf story, I guess, and I guess the antagonist. I think that's. You can say that they were memorable antagonists, but that was a good story because you could see that backstory and stuff like that. And maybe when we get a backstory, I think the backstory is one of the most important things to a villain. I think you need to have a good backstory, or if you don't know about it from the start, we need a backstory. But then again, there's some characters we don't even know the full backstory, like Blackbeard. It's still clean. And Blackbeard is like, when you were talking about Hoshiyumi and Hinata, that just brought up in my mind, because Blackbeard has basically the same goals as Luffy in general, but he's just going about it in a different type of way completely. He wants freedom as well, but he doesn't care how he gets it.
His speech in Jaya is forever top 5. Dreams will never die. The Pirates, the Age of Doubt speech was iconic. It's iconic. Like, that's why when people say they skip Giants like Peter, it's weird. Exactly, you can see the panel.
Yeah, like when he's sitting down, they have Luffy and Zoro with Nami, him in Pi. Still in my head. Anytime that happens, it's just
rent free.
It's really good. So I think you have to be a good mangaka to make a black story at all. I can't remember any more because just One Piece is in my head right now. But I feel like there are probably more mangakas that just have characters with no backstory and they're still good. But majority of the time, you need a backstory. I need to know why he's doing it.
No?
Aizen,
Yeah,
Aizen he was wavy. Yeah, I mean he had a little bit, but not too much.
Not really, because I think the only backstory was in the Vice's arc, and that wasn't really his thing.
Yeah.
Like, we never really saw what made Aizen
That's
Aizen.
true, you know. It's from another person's backstory, and he became a better character from that. Mad. But yeah, Aizen, Blackbeard, no backstory, and yeah, you just know what they want. They tell you like, this is what I want, and this is how I'm gonna get it, and it makes sense to them. But
they're very straightforward characters.
Very straightforward and it's good. But we need a backstory for most characters, and if the backstory flops, then I'm like, yeah, I don't really care. So with the new stuff, the way I took a break from Black Clover, and that was one of the reasons. I was like, I get there's like stakes at hand, but I just don't care, bro. Like this, I started feeling like, get this over with, please, quickly, defeat them and go. I don't want to feel that about any antagonist ever. I don't want to be like, all right, just hurry up, just beat them, and let's move on with the story. Before we know, this might be the end arc of Black Clover. I don't even know, but I'm still feeling like, get over it. Just defeat them, power up, please. Get your horns and stuff like that, and let's move on. When I start feeling like that, it's okay, let me take a break. I don't want to feel this way about Black Clover. It's been good. It's not the best. Like, I'll never say Black Clover is the best anime of all time. Don't get me wrong, but I enjoy it. But I think that's one of the biggest weaknesses of the show. There's no memorable antagonist. Like, you know what? There's Madara from Naruto, there's Pain from Naruto, there's Blackbeard.
Right, so it doesn't have that one villain.
Yeah,
that
you
one
need to
guy.
have at least that one.
Okay.
That one guy. And when I came to Black Clover, I'm like, I don't know what to say. So I think, that shows the importance of antagonists in a story, really.
I hear you. I think about Black Clover's ending, I don't think, because we still have the stuff with the Diamond Kingdom, so depending on how this arc ends, we'll see. But and also like Yami's land, like since they introduced that he's from a different continent, I don't think they'll end the series without touching, maybe going over there, because what's his name, Tabata has been quite good with exploring different regions of the world. So but
his world building is decent.
Yeah, but
he's doing it slowly, he's not rushing it. That's all I like it.
I agree.
Slowly,
I was quite happy to go
stuff.
to the Heart Kingdom, and then now we're in the Spade. Yeah, back to antagonists. We're doing bad antagonists next, or like who is a bad antagonist, what makes a bad antagonist, or things we just don't like in a bad antagonist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Things are just like, you know what, I don't like this in an antagonist.
I have to think.
Yes, like, I didn't think so, because it's a bit harder.
It's tough because, like we said before, like if we ever see a manga or we're watching an anime that has a bad antagonist, man's not really gonna continue reading or watching it if they play a heavy role in what makes or what is seemingly going to make this a great manga or anime. Because bro, if you're bad, that's it. Like I know if you're your main characters that you need to be good are not good, and they have characteristics that will really impede your enjoyment, I'm not going to continue.
Yeah. That's true, because if antagonist is bad, I mean there's some, but if I have a protagonist is bad as well, I'm not continuing it. But I feel like I've continued so many stories with a bad protagonist. I might have a bad protagonist and still enjoyed the show because of those strong other characters, and the antagonists were good. There's a thing in my head I've forgotten. There's an anime I wanted to say, but I forgot. But yeah, if antagonist is bad and like Raguel said, it plays a main role, it's just no. I can't watch that story.
It's gone.
I can't watch the story. But I don't have like specific things people do, but I have like general things. Like, I cannot be annoyed with the antagonist. If I think an antagonist is annoying, like whiny stuff like that, I can't.
Yeah, I was thinking the same.
Antagonist needs to. I love my antagonist educated. You can't be stupid, because it doesn't just make it believable. You're really getting beat up by a stupid person. You need to be educated. You need to be like more believable as a villain or antagonist. You know, the things you do are calculated, is done well. I love like more calculated villains than, and even not calculated. Like, it's just be chaos. You're so overwhelmingly strong that, you know, they can't do anything. But if you're weak, not weak, but even not that strong, if I can comfortably say that, oh, the main character can beat you and you're not that smart, as a villain, I just don't care. I'm going back to One Piece a lot, but Wappo, I was like, you know what, I don't care about this guy. There was no stakes. He can bite stuff, he can eat stuff, he's not smart, he's not calculated, he's not overwhelmingly strong.
Yeah, I might have to call Cat because it's not Wappo. He got put in the mud and he worked his way back to the top, got his own kingdom off the back of his own devil fruit ability. But no, I'm not gonna go save Wappo because he stinks. But
well, that story was good. I can't lie. I was surprised when I was reading the cover story. This man went from the bottom to the top over again.
Trademark, patented.
But yeah, I feel like Wappo's just, I don't know. I can't remember many villains or antagonists. Like, but if you're not overly strong, and if you're not smart at the same time, and Wappo was just perfect for that. I don't feel he just makes. I'm not interested. I don't care about you at all.
I kind of feel sorry for. I'll just quickly say this. I kind of feel sorry for antagonists, like a tad, because there's not really a lot of flexibility when it comes to the lanes you can go in as a character, depending on how well the writer is. But most of the time, there's a lot of inflexibility when it comes to antagonists. So you can't be like heavily. It's not most likely going to work out for you if you're a heavily comedic antagonist, because not a lot of people are gonna take that kind of individual serious. Look at Buggy. Nobody ever took him serious. And when it comes to your intelligence, like even like Ed was saying, you kind of have to be fairly like have a lot of charisma, intelligence. Like you're not really gonna have or really like warm up to an individual antagonist that has zero charisma and has zero likability. It kind of has to be likable. Like there's a lane that they kind of have to fit into, and there's not really a lot of like variation you can like take out of it, if you know what I mean.
I agree. I think for me, bad antagonist is probably linked with bad writing. So maybe it's not against the person themselves, but just how the story is constructed. So if the writing isn't executed well, so like I feel like just take the things that I like and flip it. So if the antagonist has no personality, nothing that really attracts me to him, and he doesn't have like presence, doesn't make me scared, doesn't make me feel like, oh yeah, what this guy's saying is right. Or if he's a chaos merchant, like if I feel like the chaos is not chaosing, I'm just not feeling what he's doing, then if I'm feeling apathetic towards the character, then I feel that's more on the writing than the character itself. But definitely I hear what you're saying about the writing, but I think, and how we're a lot more, I guess, I forgot the word, but I guess strict on antagonists and the criteria to what a good antagonist will be. But maybe that's just because of how important the role they play in the story, how they're supposed to be drawing out our protagonists, opposing the protagonists, challenging their ideals, making them question their ideals, maybe causing changes in the protagonist. Maybe that's why we're so strict on them. And I think also when we're thinking about antagonists, we also have to pay mind to the story, like, or genre. Because if it's like a slice of life show or manga, because I was thinking about this when I'm thinking about slice of life manga or series I've read, sometimes it's quite hard to establish a antagonist as a person. Sometimes it's like not actually a person, sometimes it's like more of a abstract thing, like a concept, or maybe it's an organization. So
Yeah.
but I think I definitely agree with what you were saying about how we're a lot more strict, and maybe we need to be less strict. But yeah, it's a hard one, definitely.
It's kind of crazy because when you even look at it in that kind of perspective, you realize that the antagonist of the series is actually slightly more important than the protagonist. Like it's actually crazy to say, but they really like you said, are made to bring out everything from the world and really challenge everybody's ideals and everybody's that thought process. They're kind of like the foundation of how far your protagonist will go and how well your protagonist will, I don't know, like be taken in by the readers or the viewers, because if you have that lackluster antagonist that does not and is not able to propel the story in any type of way at all, then what is even the protagonist looking like? I feel like it's very, one leans heavily more on the other. Like if you think of the protagonist, he or she really needs the antagonist. Like they need that. If not, there is no story.
Yeah, definitely, especially if it's a character-driven story. Like if the characters are the main thing, the author wants to bring his fan base towards his series, then definitely he needs his writing of the antagonist to be strong. Especially if it's like more of a series where maybe he's dealing with themes of confrontation or conflict, or maybe like they're working towards something and then you're trying to introduce this rival. So I definitely agree that the antagonist might sometimes play a more important role, just I guess conceptually when you're doing your writing, because of what they might bring to your story. Because a lot of times, like when we're talking about these shonen series, we always are mentioning, like if you're talking about Hunter x Hunter, everyone's always talking about Miriam and Crawler, and then like because those are like what people say, like these are how you write the villain. Sometimes they even talk more about than Conan Killer, which just goes to show when it's done right, it really does elevate the series to like a different level. So I guess that's why we harp on it so much.
Because when you think about it, it's definitely the thing that draws you in. Even it's weekly, like the things the mangas we choose to read weekly and the animes we choose to view weekly. Most of the time, it can be said that generally that we come back to see how the protagonist is going to overcome what the antagonist has put in place. You know what I mean? We come back to see that friction and that overcoming. If the antagonist is unable to do a good enough job in putting barriers and obstacles where our protagonists don't have to make significant changes in their character, in their judgment, in their action to overcome, then those series are the ones that we put to the back burner. You know, the ones where it's not a must to watch or read. Like you enjoy it. You definitely still enjoy it. You can't just say, oh, they are bad series, but you're not captivated enough to be like, oh, it's out on Monday, it's out on Sunday. I have to look at how we are on how everybody is on Attack on Titan. It's a must that you see it on when it drops, because obviously because of first, and you know you're gonna get spoiled if you don't see it. Because Twitter and that and everything is a madness, and hey, people out there, stop spoiling things, please, bro. I beg you. But obviously, also you have to see it because you want to know how our characters are going to progress, and especially in crunch time situation, how they're going to progress and really jump over the hurdles and really push through what the antagonists have really put in place. You know what I mean? If you don't have that, like, I feel like definitely the enjoyment of the series, the levels just go way down, way down.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to, I guess, end that discussion we were having. But another thing, how I was talking about how antagonists can be bigger than just a person, and also how you were talking about what the antagonist is doing, like if they don't have a solid plan, and if you don't feel a threat and the protagonist has no issue dealing with what you're putting out, like it's not really trouble for them to beat you. And if this is like a constant theme, then obviously people aren't going to feel tension or suspense in your manga. They're not going to be like, oh yeah, this guy, I'm reading this series because X is always applying pressure to A. No, A is always doing whatever he wants, and X tries to apply pressure, but it's just more of a thing where it's an annoyance at this point. Like A is just vibing, and then X tries to do something and it always fails, and why is this character here? But one thing from, this isn't even an anime, it's from like a cartoon, Young Justice. Like you have this group called The Light, and they're like the antagonist and the overarching antagonist. And what I like about The Light is that you will see throughout the season, they're working with other villainous groups, right? And then we have our protagonists who combat these groups, but they always have like a bigger plan, a bigger picture. So even though it looks like their allies are losing, what they're trying to do is still working. Like it's just that it looks like the protagonists are advancing, but the story's always letting you know the light is here, they're working, and they're slowly getting what they want. And we're seeing that they always have like a contingency plan. That's another thing why I like Crocodile, because he was so smart when he was in Alabasta. He didn't know Luffy was gonna be there to mess him up, but when he recognized Luffy was a threat, he dealt with him 3 times. And on the 3rd time he lost because he was just not in the right mindset. But people often forget, like, Crocodile was able to deal with Luffy 2 times. Even when Luffy prepared his plan, Crocodile dealt with him quickly, and he had the bomb in the plaza. Like, they tried to stop it, it was on a timer, so they had to get Pell to fly up. And it's just those things that you're like, oh yeah, Crocodile, that's a great antagonist because of how smart he is, how he was kind of like there's probably like a special term, but like how he just fit the desert theme of Alabasta, and like what he was doing, how he was draining life from that country by living there, bearing his influence, trying to instigate conflict between the revolutionaries and the kingdom, how he was trying to control the country from the underneath and just rise up so he could take over to get what he wanted. I think everything about Crocodile was like what made him such a iconic antagonist, because I feel like Oda did everything right, because that was probably the first person like in the story where you looked at him and you're like, oh, I don't know how we're gonna get out of this one, because especially that first performance, it was so dominating, so it scared you, because he had his timer and he was like, okay, time's up, and he dealt with Luffy so quickly, you're just left gobsmacked. And Oda had to come up with 2 things to save Luffy. Both times, oh yeah, Robin's here, so he's good. And then, oh, the drop of water he spat up just conveniently managed to hit him and rehydrate him. Right, that's cool.
I loved Luffy's face after the drop of water came back and hit him. Even he knew this was some crud writing to let him live. He should have died, man.
He's lucky, that's all I'm saying. But is there any other things you want to mention about antagonists?
On top of everything you just said, I don't think there's any real deep, because of how subjective the matter is. Because even when I'm thinking about it now, I just sit down, when you brought up the different genres, it's hard to really pinpoint what kind of characteristics will bring out the best in your protagonist from an antagonist point of view, and what kind of individual dream or in anything in general, they have to be or hold. You know what I mean? I can't even find the right word to explain it. But that kind of individual is hard to put an objective on what it has to be. But I really liked how you put it out there. The main thing is definitely how much friction you can cause with the story, and how much you're able to, even though your main thing as an antagonist is not to stop the protagonist, because you have your own kind of goals and stuff, but what happens in your direct actions that leads to situations that definitely impact the story in general. And going on with the Crocodile, like you said, just having that intelligence. You don't want an individual that loses because they're ignorant or naive and be like, oh, I just didn't see that coming. You know what I mean? At this point is not believable. Like the way Crocodile was done so well, like you articulated, is because you knew that it was legit by chance and luck that Luffy won in the end. Like that Crocodile was so good in how he manipulated the situation and had full control of the scenario, that on the third fight, it was only by like the chance and everything that happened in the story to that point that he lost. And that's what really makes a great antagonist in the end, is someone that doesn't lose because of the story needs him to lose. You can't lose because it's necessary for the story. You know what I mean? It can't be easy. It has to be a conclusion that fits the world, the systems that's been established by the writer, and fits the narrative of our protagonist and how they have collided and stuff. That's how it has to be. If you just end up losing by a whim over something that was like, we went through this whole journey. That's why I feel kind of scared for One Piece, because the journey is so long that the importance of the end becomes crucial. And it comes with all stories that are very long and well developed. Your end now is so significant, and how you finish is crazy. That's a lot of pressure on the story writers, but I'm sure Golda can do it. I'm sure.
Yeah, hopefully, trust in Oda. Even though sometimes if I go into it, I'll be ranting for like an hour. But I think to close off, I think what I want to do is end with a recommendation. So recommend a series with an antagonist who you really enjoy, or maybe someone who you see like their influence on this series you're watching or reading. Like without this person, the series won't be as attractive to you. Someone who, or an antagonist whose presence in that series is needed, who drives the story, influences the story, or is just written very well, or how they're used within the story is very well done by the author.
That's such a good one. And I think for me, I definitely have to go to the first one I recommended, and Johan Lyot from Monster. He did so much, as especially throughout the series, how he was so mysterious, and he was a puff of smoke that our protagonist and everybody was so unaware of. Like, how can you be so? It was so wild to think that somebody with enormous presence and enormous like importance in everything that was happening was a ghost, was like a puff of smoke in the story. And our protagonist was then, his mission was to try and gather that smoke and trap it, which is the most impossible thing, especially when you see how intelligent he is. And that's why he's so great. How he opposes, and how he like, that sets him apart. It sets him apart from any other antagonist I've ever read about, because throughout the story you drive up like a deep hatred for him, especially with it was mostly confusion. Like you are as blind as everybody in this series with your understanding of this character, and for him to have that impact, especially so early on in the series, to have that kind of impact when I would describe it as I couldn't even see his face. I didn't know the character, but to have that impact on the story is so incredible. Like some other individuals, I wouldn't even mention them. Like they don't compare, because even when you know everything about them, they don't even drive the story like this guy did. Like he drove the story and made me every week bang this out. I was like, right. Do you know what? After you read, you're breathing deeply. I'm like, why am I breathing deeply for? It's just a manga. Like, how am I feeling? The psychology of everything that happened in this manga, incredible. Read Monster. I might one day watch the anime.
Wow, you sold that spectacularly. Like, I've heard so much good things about this guy Johan Lieber, just from like everyone. Like, you just echoing their thoughts, and I really like the way you framed it, like how he's a puff of smoke and the guy's trying to gather the smoke, but that's impossible because of course you can't gather smoke with your hands. Like it's always gonna slip through the cracks no matter what you do. But I think for me, who I'm gonna pick for my antagonist, who I feel like their influence on the story is very strong, it's from a manga I recently read, Runway the Warate, or Smiled on the Runway. And just a short background, it's basically a fashion manga where we have two protagonists, one who's trying to be the top model and the other who's trying to be a fashion designer. And the antagonist in this series is, I'm going to say, the modeling industry, because they're biased towards, so basically our main character, she is a model, she wants to be a model, but she doesn't have the height to be a model. She's only 158 centimeters, and to be a model, or for most people to recognize you, you have to be above 175. So she's always at a disadvantage, just solely because of her height. She can have the best skill in the room, but just because she's not tall enough, she will not be coveted as much as someone who is that level of height. So, and the reason why I wanted to say the modeling industry is because of the bias that they constantly apply to her throughout the series. Like, you see, whenever she's trying to do something, the only thing that they mention is the height. They're like, oh, she's so short. Like, the height is such a strong factor on her ability, even though she's so good irregardless of her being short. And what I like is it's consistent throughout the series. Even though we see how she improves, constantly you will see in the background, like, oh yeah, do you really think you can make it with that height? You're not good enough. You should give up modeling because you're not tall enough. And the goal she's trying to reach, to be walking on the Paris fashion collection, like, to reach that level, you need to be like a highly popular model. And constantly, like, the people are saying, yeah, you can't do this, you're not tall enough. The world is basically against her, and she has to somehow maneuver an industry where she is naturally at a disadvantage at something she can't even control. So that's why I really find that series interesting, because of what is introducing, like the dialogue of like what goes into a fashion collection, how you even structure your collection, like the music, the outfits, what kind of outfits you design, like what is high fashion, what's the role of a fashion designer, even like how they pick their models, what the model actually has to do when she's walking down the runway, like the different techniques, the posture, how she walks, what she does with her hands. Like, it goes into so much detail, and like when we're seeing her shine, it makes it so enjoyable, because we see, irrespective of the backlash, the discrimination she receives, she's still able to shine. She's still able to demonstrate that, yeah, I can be a top model because of the even if I'm short. And that's why I find the series quite enjoyable because of that constant pressure. It's like it's like what I like is I like when people are like going down on someone, they don't have any faith, and then someone just proves them wrong, and that moment right there, that's like one of the best moments for me personally. That's why I enjoy Diamond No Ace so much, because people don't rate Saomura compared to Furia. So whenever Saomura shines, and whenever he's in that tense situation, I'm sure you know, Raguel, he goes into so many situations. They're like, oh, switch him out, bring in Kawakami, and he just performs. He eats in those high pressure situations, and he always performs. He always gets the guy out, and it's just those moments right there. Like, you're just like, yes, we knew he could do this. You guys should have been awake. But yeah, those. I'll do those two, Diamond No Ace and Smile Down the Runway, because those moments when you see your MC perform, especially when you know the work they put in against all odds, great moments.
No, I hear that. That's facts. Like, it really makes you feel like the journey has been worth it. Like, your journey with these characters has been fruitful, and like, yeah, it's like you have to be shouting for those underdogs out there, shouting for their shine.
Yes. So unfortunately, Ed had to disappear midway through, but we tried to hold it down for him. Maybe we'll do like actually, let me not even promise anything. If there's something added extra, you'll hear it in the recorder. But yeah.
Yo, this is post-production Ed here. You know, I had to give my own recommendation. I had to. So thank you for Daniel and Raguel holding it down. But my recommendation for a character that was so great, was such a good antagonist that you need to watch the series is Axlad from Vinland Saga. I would say there's no Vinland Saga, at least season 1 of it, there's no Vinland Saga without Axlad. It's just impossible. You can't have him and have Vinland Saga in 2 separate situations. It's just, that's how good he is. And let's not even talk about how it impacts the protagonist, Thorfinn. I mean, it's one of the antagonists or villains that you like. It makes you question, like, is he doing something wrong? Is he really a bad guy? But then you have to remember, like, this guy killed babies for fun, literally. A whole village, it doesn't, regardless of gender, age, like position, he kills people to get what he wants. He has a goal in mind, and he's gonna get it, no matter who or what the person is. A king, you just need to watch it. I don't want to spoil too much because it's a recommendation after all. But yeah, the impact on the main character's life in general and his story. Can you imagine if someone did, like, okay, a little bit of spoilers because I can't even talk about Axel without bringing this up. But imagine if someone killed your dad and somehow he becomes your father figure, but he's still the antagonist. Exactly. You need to watch Vinland Saga just because of Axlad. He, at some point, you think he's the protagonist because of how much he drives the story forward. The story can't be driven forward without Axlad. So he's the GOAT. You need to watch Vinland Saga. If you haven't watched Vinland Saga by now, what are you doing? Season 2 is coming soon. Farmland Saga, so it's time to catch up. Vinland Saga is really good. I don't want to spoil too much because I can go for like an hour talking about Axlad and the way he thinks, his philosophies, and why he's such a beautiful written character. But yeah, Axlad, you know, the true king of Wales. We love him.
This was episode 9 of the AKA Mindset podcast. What we like in an antagonist. It was me, Daniel, signing off.
Likewise. Catch you guys in a bit.
Bye. And also bye from Ed too.
Deuces.